Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, and more. Follow Elliot in the Morning everywhere social at EITM Online.
In person, the best part is when we're going on book tour now. Nobody's seen anybody on book tour. So everyone's like, this is the best book tour in 2 years. You are the greatest at this. Because they're just happy to be outside of their house.
Oh, it's so good.
It is.
So
And
good.
booksellers, by the way, of course, are careful by nature, right? It's like librarians, it's teachers. And they are just like, they're on benders at the books.
Are they really?
No, because they're just like, again, they're like, we're going out all night.
But it looks people are flocking to the. I mean, there's only been a couple of them so far.
It's been crazy. Like the first one we did in New York,
right?
Was, and listen, my friends I've been doing this 25 years. At this point, my friends are like, I'm not coming anymore.
Right.
I've seen you enough. I'm not showing. But we brought Murr from Impractical Jokers, who's my buddy, to the event, and all my friends are like, I'm coming, but for Murr. Like, they brought all their kids to come meet him because it was like the easiest way to meet him, So that, and then last night, out in Maryland, 250 people came to this event.
Dude, that's awesome. Well, it's
was
over.
awesome.
I mean, that's the beauty. It's all over.
And that's the thing is, everyone's like, we're done. We're
Right.
moving on. Like, you gotta go, and everyone's just so happy. So it's like the Roaring Twenties for the Lightning Rod book tour. That should be like who sponsors it. It's like Jay Gatsby, sponsored by the Great Gatsby.
Can I tell you though? So I got the book and I read it. It's very good, and I'm not just saying that. It's very, very good. It's it's great. It really is. But you know what freaked me out? It's been 4 years.
I know.
And in my head, I was like, God damn, Brett hasn't done anything in 4 years.
Nothing.
But obviously you've been very busy, but it didn't even dawn on me. It's been 4 years since we've had a novel.
Right. I mean, the thing is we also put out 2 other hardcover books,
Yes.
right? So everyone's like, oh, yeah, you really weren't gone because you did the first conspiracy. We did the Lincoln conspiracy. So the publisher wasn't
And
like...
then the kids' books, obviously.
And then, like 90 kids' books, right?
And a cartoon.
And a cartoon. And, right, so everyone's like, it's not like we haven't seen you for 4 years. Like, I remember having a 3-year break in one of the novels, and I truly had nothing. It was like in the 90s, like nothing for those years. Thankfully, we've been really lucky to do all these other projects, and so it lets us, and I think also in a strange, odd way, it made the book better. I mean, I just took my time and said, I don't want to just pump out characters again. I don't want to pump out just plot again. I want something that's worth saying about these characters. Like,
Right.
if we're going to come do it. And I love these characters. I truly, Zig and Nola to me, I spent so much time writing comics.
Right.
And comics taught me that characters like Superman and characters like Batman, the reason we can go back to them for 80 years is because every time you go out to see them, there's something new you can say about Batman, as the 90th Batman movie proves, right? Like, you can keep coming back to it because they have a depth to them that deserves and you can always find something new. And the first time I tried a recurring character, it was good, but the honest truth is I wasn't ready. I didn't have a character who was deep enough to carry more than one story.
Right.
Zig and Nola have a depth and like a loss in them that truly lets me tell kind of, at least for now, as I'm hoping, infinite stories. Like, they can keep coming back and they learn a little bit, but they have a depth to them that I don't think the other characters had.
Is 4 years, because I was wondering this, and listen, what do I know? But there's 4 years in between books. So if somebody picks up the Lightning Rod and they're like, oh, recurring character, I won't know anything about him, I forgot a lot.
Everyone. The first review I got was a guy who said, I read Lightning Rod. I didn't realize there was an escape artist. I love the book.
Right.
You don't have to read the first one. And
it does help, though.
Right, but my wife said, no one's going to remember what you did 4 years ago.
Well, that was
Don't
it.
worry.
I started reading it. I was
It's
like,
new to everybody.
I totally forgot.
Because that's what I do. I catch you up in the first couple of chapters. You're like, oh, yeah, that guy. Okay, got it. I'm ready.
Right.
It sounds silly, but there's an art form to that. Like, it took me a while to figure out because what do? I tested on my high school buddies who have been my readers for all these years. And let's be honest, they're not that bright. They're not remembering anything. They can't barely remember. And I'm like, did it make sense? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, add a few more details. Did it make sense? It kind of did. Add one more detail. Did it make sense? Perfectly.
Oh,
and then
good.
you're suddenly back. So I explain everything. You can just start it.
And Zig and Nola are based on real people.
So they're
Did we know this last time that they were based on real people?
Well, what's based on them are their jobs. So Zig, I met. Obviously, I do a lot of work at Dover Air Force Base. I went down to Dover. The real Zig actually was trying to come last night, and I was like, "Oh, you got to come!"
Oh, dude, how awesome would that be?
And I will say this is the woman who Nola Brown is named after, who is the artist in residence, was the artist in residence for the military.
Amy, right?
Amy Brown. I remember when I was actually here in Virginia, and I went to this, great building that had all this art of all things from the military. I was like, why does the military and the army have all this art? And they told me, and this is true, that since World War I, that the Army has had a painter on staff who paints disasters as they happen, whether it's storming the beaches of Normandy, Vietnam, Korea, 9/11, whatever it is. And I'm like, I said, you're telling me everyone's racing in with guns blazing, and you've got a guy who races in with nothing but paintbrushes in their pockets. That guy's crazy. I want to meet him. I got to meet him. And they're like, you mean her. You got to meet her.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I want to meet her. And that's where Nola was born. The real woman is Amy Brown. She was the artist in residence. I think she's coming tonight to the Virginia event.
Oh, dude, are you serious?
So last night she texted me because last time she surprised me.
Is she still the artist in residence?
No, she's actually rotated out because you rotate through for a couple of years and then you go out. But
Gotcha.
What I love about our Nola is she's nothing like Amy in real life, but what she does have is a mentor. And that's where I got her backstory of just having a teacher in her life. But, and listen, Nola's a killer. My character's a murderer. So
Right.
if you met her tonight, I'd be like, keep your children away. But Nola's someone who, like, she sees the way the tongue on your belt faces, and she can tell by which way it faces if you're righty or lefty. Right?
So okay, so that's what I wanted to ask. So that the artist in residence,
Yes.
right? Oh, two things. Well, you talk about, yes, like since the beaches of Normandy or the war, whatever it is, the artist goes with everybody on the front line, full clearance. They just go,
Wherever
and it's
they
their
want.
job to kind of paint and capture everything in art form. There's a story in the book about Bin Laden. Was the artist in residence there?
It's a good question. No,
You
I don't
made
think
that
so.
up.
Wait, what was the story? I'm trying. Which story?
Wasn't
are you talking
there, like, when they talk about an artist in residence being on the front lines of everything, the hunt for Bin Laden gets mentioned. Was the artist in residence along for that?
I don't think so. But the artist. See, you have to understand. The artist in residence goes wherever the artist in residence wants to go. So if they want to go, if they want to be in the, if you can make your way there to a military thing like the Situation Room, they can paint that. They can go paint. I mean, they never really go on the front lines of something that's secret because it's just too secret, right? And that's a different training. But they've gone, if you say, and Amy was, when she was doing it in Afghanistan, we were leaving Afghanistan, she was painting things leaving, just to show, like, this is how you leave a country and what the devastation, like throwing away, 500 computers because we just got to trash them because we can't let anyone have what's on them, and just painting computers. So sometimes a mundane,
Right.
but you can see something like, for racing into 9/11. That's the thing. The story in the book is I thought it was a 9/11 story, and that's real. There was an artist in residence there.
Going right in as everything was taking
Of
place.
course, it's cordoned off to everyone. No one's getting in. The artist in residence gets in because they have to. They are the witnesses to history
And have they see stuff that nobody else sees.
The thing that I'm actually using this in the next book, but the thing that Amy told me is I was like,
I gotta write this down.
I'm like, how do you get in? Because you have these guys who are like, these big shot colonels who are like, listen, honey, you're not coming into my thing. And she's like, she says, you find who's talkative. She says, she told me the story about this one guy, I forget if it was a major or someone, who used to come to all the places, and he'd come with cigars and liquor. And he'd just show up, and everyone would talk to him. And she's like, that's how you get in anywhere. I'm like, I think that was on Bugs Bunny once I saw. Like, I think Bugs Bunny does that. Like, he pulls out cigars and says, like, hey, pal, how do you do? And, in that kind of Bugsy Malone way. But that you have to kind of charm your way in. And she said her great quote-unquote pickup line is you go to these big shot colonels and you say, you want to be part of history?
Right.
It's a good question, right? That your ego is suddenly being fed in that moment.
Right.
And so you do, and people want to be part of it. They want to, be in a museum one day, and you get this access that's first hand. And what I love, and what I learned from Amy is artists see the world differently than you and I. So Nola as a character, as I was saying, is like the way you tie your scarf. She can see which way, if you're righty or lefty, depending on which way it faces, and you pull it. She can see that there's crow's feet on just one of your eyes.
Right.
That's the person in the room who's the murderer. That's the guy who's the sniper because they aim and shoot with that eye.
Right. Nola can also see that if a bad guy's got a cell phone up to his head, like he's talking on the phone, but there's no cell service. That's probably a detonator.
That is probably going to be someone she's going to kill. Yes. I mean, but that's and the fun is she'll spot like you're leaning on your right leg more because you had, you're favoring that because of knee surgery years ago. What she spots are weaknesses.
Right.
And that's her skill. And if you can spot weaknesses, you're good, right? And Nola's belief of the world is if you want the world to make sense, you grab it by the throat and you make it make sense, which is a good idea. And sometimes it's necessary. Zig's view of the world, the other main character, his view of the world is you put kindness in the world, you put generosity in the world, and the world becomes a better place.
Right.
That's a good idea. It's a naive idea, but it's an idea worth fighting for.
And Zig is a mortician.
He's a mortician. My obsession with death, when I lost my parents, I was like, I'm not obsessed with death anymore. And then I made my main character a mortician.
Right.
Like I can't be more obsessed with death. And when I do all this work with the USO, I found Dover Air Force Base there. Truthfully, I didn't know what Dover was. I had seen it, of course, because Dover is that place where all those, when someone's killed in action in the military,
you see the flag draped.
You see the American
coffins.
flag covered coffins come back, and everyone's saluting. And Dover is also interesting to me because all the space shuttle, when the space shuttle exploded, the bodies went to Dover of the astronauts, right? In D.C., all the Pentagon victims from 9/11, their bodies went to Dover. And every one of our spies all across the world, whether it's from the CIA or anyone we have secretly stashed anywhere else, our 007s, their bodies go to Dover too, which means Dover is a place that's filled with secrets.
Right.
And I'm like, that's a good place to set a book and be able to do stories. And what I was taken by is the morticians there will show.
Did you spend a lot of time there?
A ton of time.
Because there's way too much detail
Yeah.
in the book to go like, Brad kind of made this up.
That place has become my I love the people there. They're so kind to me. They're so generous. And they'll spend 12 hours rewiring someone's jaw, smoothing it over with clay because someone wants to see their son one last time.
Right.
Rebuilding someone's hand from scratch because a mother says, I want to hold my son's hand one last time. These are the best of us working on the best of us. And I was like, to show the dignity and respect to our soldiers that they show, that's a hero. I got my character. Here we go. And what I love is Zig, the real Zig in real life, and he's an amalgamation of tons of people. Every mortician that I've met there, they see things on bodies that no one else sees. They're really good at spotting stuff because they're in the final details before. What I realized over time is morticians are not there for the dead. Morticians are there for the living.
Exactly.
Right? They're there to give the one thing that is the hardest thing to get in death, which is closure, right? Is to make you feel like your loved one is okay. It's going to be okay even though they're gone. And in the book, Zig, he loses his daughter. He's never going to have his daughter back. It is the thing that is the hole that will never close in his chest. And Nola, as a little girl, never had a father, was thrown away like she was garbage as a little kid. She never has a father. Zig will never have a daughter. That is the true north of the lightning rod. They will never have what they want most, but they have each other, and they'll figure stuff out from there. And we all know you have to build your family beyond your family sometimes. So I love the fact that Zig gets to do this thing with the dead and honor them, and it lets me tell stories that are obviously at the highest level of profile because the government's greatest secrets are going through Dover.
Can I ask you this, though? Like some of the details about what they do at Dover, when you walk through that, where every body that comes into Dover has to be run through an X-ray to make sure that if it's a spy, if it's somebody that was killed overseas, that there's not an explosive in them ready to go off.
Yeah, it could literally be a booby trap, right? So there's not a detail in that book in Dover that I made up. That Dover is endlessly,
even to the point where a mortician won't have in their office won't have a picture of a family member.
Nobody, because it's the clergy member. That's the scene you're talking about.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
the clergy have no pictures, no personal photos. Why? Because anyone who comes into your office, why are they in your office? Because they lost someone they loved. Did they want to see pictures of your family? They do not.
Right.
I didn't make that up.
Right.
You can't make that. The thing I love about the lightning rod is you can't make this stuff up. You read it and you know that detail is true. Every detail. And listen, what do I know about the dead, right? Or dressing them. Even the tricks they use on the special things that they put on their face to make their skin look better. Like all the tricks are all from the real people at Dover that they gave me. And I'm like, they're endlessly fascinating to me, which is why people, I think, like them in the book.
And then there's what is the easiest thumbnail to give of the book?
Oh, so
Like, I feel we keep
here's the
talking about
thumbnail.
Nola and
Let me tell you the
Zig.
thumbnail. Let me set it up. Okay, so the book opens with my greatest fear, one of my greatest fears,
Can I tell you this?
as a Jewish neurotic lunatic.
No, but this pisses me off because I wanted that to be a true story. I wanted
Listen,
that to
it is a true story. It's my entire life.
No, it's your fear, but I
Right.
wanted it to be based on a true story.
So here's the story. So the character hands his car keys over to the valet at a fancy restaurant. And the valet takes the car. Instead of parking in the parking lot, he hits the GPS button on the steering wheel. He says the magic words, "Go home." Now the car plots a route to the man's home. He's got his car keys. The valet has, of course, now his house keys because he left them on there. He's going to the guy's house to rob him. It's a robbery. As he gets into the house, he sees there's another man waiting for him with a gun. This is not a robbery at all. This is a trap.
Right.
And when their bodies show up at basically a local funeral home run by our hero Zig, Zig sees something on the body that he's never meant to see. And it leads, of course, to one of the government's most closely guarded secrets. I just ruined chapter 1 of
Right.
the lightning rod.
Right.
Like, ruined. And the thing is,
The other chapters are okay.
there's only 2 chapters in the book.
That's true.
So they all die in the end, and then there's chapter 1. So there's 2. So it's done. I'll see you later.
But it is so good.
No,
It
but that
is-
chapter, it's funny.
But it takes off just like that.
Well, I obviously I've been reviewed all over. They'll tell me it's good, it's bad, whatever. I'm numb to it at this point. My son picks up the lightning rod, and he's like, "I'm gonna read this one." And my kids don't care
was
about
gonna
anything
say,
I do. Nothing.
If
nothing.
we go back books, your kids never read them. You were excited that my kids would read them.
I was thrilled that your kids would balance your sofa with it. I was just happy it was going to some use. And my kids do not care, right? My daughter once said to me, "Dad, I hate to read." And I was like, literally, that's what she said. I'm like, you do know what feeds you, right? You know what I do for a living. And you can't. And so my son's like, "I'm going to read the lightning rod." And we're on vacation. He's in the little lounge chair next to me. And I'm terrified now, right? Because you can give me any reviewer in the world, but it's my kid. And he reads that first chapter with the valet. And he turns to me, slow motion. And he's like, "Dad, great opening." And I'm like, kill me now. I'm fine to die. Like, it's okay. And of course, I was just watching him every chapter. And it's so good because he'll be like, he gives compliment. And, no kid should ever give compliments to their parents. Like, they shouldn't be impressed by their parents. But he actually really dug the book. And it was fascinating what he dug. And the thing that was really cool, Elliot, is he at one point says to me, "Dad, we're all in this book. All of our stuff is in here." Because anytime I'm like, I need a birthday, it's my kids' birthdays. If I need, like, someone has a Huggy, it's my kids' Huggy from when they're little. If it's a movie reference, it's the ones my kids love. And he saw that over 2 years of me writing this book, that I'm littering it all the time with all the little inside jokes from our family. And he finally got to see it. And
Right.
I'm not consciously doing that. I'm just like, okay, I need a movie that kids love, that they watch endlessly. Oh, Minions? Okay, got it. Gru. And that is just, my kids will, when they were little, will watch Despicable Me 2. Like, they can recite it like it is the Bible.
And there is such a great, and it's funny because I made
The
a
Minions,
note.
that Minions
The
thing
Minions,
is,
the
my
the
kids.
Minions toy inside in the book is
100%.
awesome.
It is awesome. And my kid got to it. He's like, "The Minions are in this." And I'm like, "For you, my son. For you, I gave birth to you for this moment, to give you your Minion moment." But he was so excited, more excited than I'm sure anyone will be in that moment. But
it's a great scene.
I appreciate it.
It's a great scene. Can I ask a stupid question? Like when you mention like Jurassic Park gets mentioned in the book, or not, it has nothing to do with it. It just gets mentioned. Or Back to the Future gets mentioned in the
Always.
book, right? Of course. Do you have to get permission?
No, you don't. You only have to get permission on the TV show. Like when we do the TV show, because then you're using someone's trademark stuff. In the books, you can make any reference you want. That's the beautiful part of the First Amendment.
So like the Minions thing, it's at such a good moment. But like you don't have to call anybody.
No, if I tried to show a picture of a minion,
right,
then they'd be like, "That's our trademark. That's a visual." But I could describe anything I want. It's part of America, right? It's part of our the American psyche is built out of all this pop culture nonsense, and so am I.
Right.
And so that's all those references when you read them in the book. They're obviously all meant for us, down to, Bonnie Tyler singing "Total Eclipse from the Heart" and Zig being obsessed with the song, and the guy in the opening scene can't shake the fact that he keeps saying "Turn around, bright eyes," which is my favorite. But the one thing is, if you use too many words from the song, if you quote a song,
right,
you got to pay. So this is where I make sure that I do not quote too many words from the song, because one time this is true, when I wrote one of my earliest books, so I got a letter in the mail and it said, "Dear Brad, I love your books." I just started out, so I was thrilled just to even get someone writing to me. And they said, "I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is I love your books. The bad news is I work for the music association, and you now owe us all this money because you quoted this song." And I was like, "What?" And so she was like, "You owe me it was like $5,000." And I was like, "I'm not paying you $5,000.
I will not even make that much money on the entire book."
I was like, "Are you crazy? This is like my first book." I'm like, I'm not paying you $5,000. And so I literally called her up and I'm like, "I'm like 27 years old. Can you and she's like, "Oh, you're clueless. Yeah, just give us like $500. It's fine." And because she was like a fan, she was like, "You're off." And I'm like, I love you, music industry. And so I'm very careful about how many lines you can quote now.
Did you have any big fights with the publisher over anything you put in the book?
No, they're actually pretty good. I'm trying to think real quick. No, they're really sweet. Why? Which one are you thinking about?
Well, first of all, Roddy is a great character.
I appreciate it.
Roddy is a fantastic character. I learned a lot from Roddy.
Yeah.
I learned a lot, especially in a fight. You pull somebody's shirt over their head and then you pull their pants down because they think that you're going to chop their penis off.
That is also true. As someone who's officially obsessed with the schoolyard and the schoolyard rules. By the way, you know that there's nothing that Roddy says as a little kid that is absolutely not true. He is totally right about how the schoolyard works and how people will cut 100%. Your penis off. That is the fear of every little boy, worried they're going to cut your penis off.
Okay, so this was my question. So it's a Roddy scene, and he's a kid, and he's up in a tree.
I was going to say in the tree. I know that scene.
And he's dangling the knife over somebody's head, and he's like, all I have to do is drop it, and it's going to kill him. And then that's when, and in the middle of all this going on, dangling a knife over someone's head, here we go. Did the publisher have an issue with the sentence, an erection expanded in his pants?
There was another line there.
That got taken out?
Which did you read a hardback or did you read the early copy?
I read the early copy.
It might not be in the final. Now everyone's going to race through and see if the erection's there. There is another line that was also there.
That got cut out?
I think the erection part is there. There was another line that they did edit, which got a little too graphic for them.
What was that?
I'm trying to remember. I'm going to send it to you, though, because I know you love nothing more than the little kid porn that is... Make sure to send that over the internet, too, so we really can go to jail together, share the cell. But there was one line that was like, that's too far, because, Roddy, so for people, obviously, you're listening, you're going, what are you talking about? Roddy is Nola's brother.
Right.
She has a twin brother, and you meet him in this book. No one knows anything about him. He's introduced here. But Roddy's, a bad seed.
Right.
And Roddy is the kid who, when you're younger, there was always that kid who everyone's afraid of, and it's Roddy. There's the kid who animals run from. It's Roddy. There's a kid who everyone knows if there's going to be a fight or something's missing, check Roddy's backpack. And I know those kids.
Right.
I grew up with those kids. I was terrified of those kids.
You were not one of those kids.
I was not. No. Please, look at me. Look at me. I could only write from the perspective of terror, right? I knew the terror side, but to be able to write that character was like, I'm like, I know this character. I've been obsessed with this character.
Character's so good,
and it's such a fun character to write.
But now I want to know if it's because the only copy I brought in was the early one.
We need someone to go and check the scene. I guarantee you. By the way, the nice part is tonight at tonight's event in Tyson's.
Right.
That guarantees that basically the 500 people in line are going to all pull out the page with an erection on it. Because by the way, last time we were on the air, someone came. Oh wait, I can find it. Yeah. Oh, there. Tyler's saving the day. You got it.
Do you know where in the book?
I know exactly where it is, of course.
Okay, well, I mean, I read it, but I wouldn't be able to turn to it.
No, I know exactly. Please. I used to be able to, if you could give me a line from the book in 10th Justice, I could basically tell you what the next line was.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, I'm going to be able to find exactly where it is. Okay. The best part is now all your listeners, wait, listen, this is turning pages, people, as I look for the word erection.
Tonight, Brad will be at Barnes & Noble, Tyson's Corner, starting at 7 o'clock. Distance selfies. which means like people will be in the parking
The
lot. You're
truth is,
inside the mall.
we took them yesterday. Nobody cared.
Oh, come get COVID from Brad.
Yeah. Or I'm going to get it from you. The only one that's mad is basically whoever's on week 2 of the book tour. Like week 2 of the book tour is getting COVID from Virginia, and they're going to be loving it. It's going to be great.
All right. Did you find it, or do you need
No,
a break?
I need
All right. So
a
let me
little
do this. Let me take a break. I have to ask you about 2 other secrets in the book, and then I have to get into a bunch of other stuff. But give me a quick break. Brad Meltzer is with us. The lightning rod is out and available now. Quick break. More with Brad Meltzer next.
Elliot in the morning.
All right. So good news is erection is in the book.
Found it.
It is in there.
They're all safe today. I feel a little bit safer that the world. And by the way, so was the masturbation line from that song you were just playing, which reminded me why they cut the other masturbation reference, because we didn't want to have 2.
Right.
And I was like, clearly what's on my mind during COVID was it wasn't just the Minions. My goodness, what's wrong?
Okay, I have to ask you about a couple of other things from the book. So we talk about Zig, obviously Dover, and you went there and have spent a number of times there. The secret warehouses that you reference in the books, 100% true.
100% true. So listen, you and I I've done the secret tunnels below the White House.
Right.
I've done the hidden labyrinth below the Capitol.
Correct.
And I found out, and this is true, that the U.S. government has about a dozen secret warehouses hidden all across the country that are built for dealing with bioterrorism attacks, whether it's smallpox, whether it's anthrax, hantavirus, whatever it might be. And so it means if there's an attack in D.C., in New York, in Florida, in Texas, in Idaho, anywhere in between, within 4 hours, or obviously sooner, they will get what they call a push package of antidotes delivered right to you where you need it. And I'm like, you're telling me that the government has secret warehouses that nobody can go inside, no one knows what's in them. I want to go inside those. And everything you see in the final scene of The Lightning Rod,
right,
it takes place in one of those warehouses. And what you see inside there, I did not make up. It is all real. That's what's secretly in there.
But the other thing that, well, first of all, how do you get in?
Because I was researching this book 5 years ago before COVID.
Wow.
That's why I got in. When I was researching this book,
Do they look completely different now?
no, they're too big to move.
No. I mean, I get that.
Yeah, they
no, I
have
mean
more
they're enormous, right?
They're basically like it's like a Costco for the end of the world.
Right.
It's great. That's truly what it is. And the only difference, if you walked in beside, like instead of having giant jars of mayonnaise, they have ventilators now.
Right.
Like instead of having like oversized cereal that you're never gonna get through, they have like burn victim stuff, or they have giant things of amphetamines in case you have painkillers. It's a great, and they also, every one of them has a giant, like one of those ones you see unfurled at a stadium, American flag hanging from the ceiling.
Oh, do they really?
They all have that. And what I love about
Do you know where they all are?
I know where a lot of them are. I did change the location because when I spoke to them, so first of all, 5 years ago, I care about them. Nobody else cares about them. It's an asterisk for the government, right? So when I go in, they take me and they take me to the headquarters that oversees the command center.
How did you learn they exist?
I read about it somewhere, and I was like, what? I was like, what is that? What is that thing? What do you mean? And I read about it because, when anthrax hit, the crazy story about them is that when back in the day of nuclear war, the government actually studied to figure out how we're going to survive nuclear war. So they create Operation High Point, which is what's there to figure out how do we make the president survive, and Congress and the Senate. And they build outside of here, outside of D.C., they built Mount Weather and all these amazing places right outside of D.C. That's where the president's going to go. We're going to take care of him. But now they're like, what happens to the rest of us, right? To you and I, all the schlubs out here, what happens when nuclear war hits? We got to study them and protect them. So instead of Operation High Point, another secret classification, they do Operation Low Point. And that's in Michigan in a sanitarium of all places, which tells you how it's going, right? And they study and they figure out, we'll get people to hide under desks. They make whole plans. They have things that are like, they're going to tell all postal mail carts are going to carry not mail but bodies. There's an entire plan in place for the end of the world. And the one thing they realize when they study it is it's all useless. It's all useless. If nuclear war happens, it's useless. And they're like, this is just dumb. That's why we stopped hiding under desks.
Right.
And then eventually, one government employee years ago says, wait a minute, nuclear war is not the threat anymore. The threat is bioterrorism. Someone's setting off some bioterror attack. we should probably have like a place full of antidotes. And in one of those times, and so many amazing people in the government, we all know friends who work in the city, they listen. They hear a good idea and they listen. And that's why my wife worked in the Capitol when anthrax, those envelopes were found after 9/11,
Right.
when they were in New York. The reason they didn't get spread everywhere is because we were ready for it. And it was the early moments of this strategic national stockpile. And it worked. And I was like, I read about it for that, and I was like, I need to know more about that. So they let me come into the command center. I saw everything. Then obviously COVID hits, and I'm calling my sources, and I'm like, this is you, right? And they're like, this is us. And I'm like, oh, crap.
Right.
And now
But clearly not ready for it at that point.
The reason they weren't ready is because the government made a bad bet. What they believed at the time is they believed that, and listen, from Trump to Obama to Bush, they've been warned a dozen times there could be a natural pandemic like we're seeing with COVID, but Congress didn't want to allocate the money. They just were like, we got enough money we're spending. We're not doing that. It's not a real threat. It's not really going to happen. And people are like, yeah, it's not. And then the Trump administration doubled down and said, it's so going to not be a threat. They had a mask-making machine that literally made hundreds of thousands of masks, and they killed it because they're like, we're not going to need it.
We'll never need it, right.
And listen, I know it's easy to Monday morning quarterback. You can't possibly know. But
of course.
Right, no one could know. And they bet that the threat was going to be from a bioterror attack. So we were totally ready for a bioterror attack. We just got hit with a thing we never thought. And the other thing that they did that was a disaster is they basically made our supplies be bought on the open market. The way that when I started researching it, they kept everything in the warehouse. What they started doing with Trump is they were like, business is going to be more efficient. And again, you can't predict this stuff. They're like, we're going to make people buy it on the open market. We're going to get better deals. It's going to be more efficient. It's going to come faster, less red tape. The problem is I'm from Florida. We're supposed to be hurricane ready. So when the hurricane's coming, right, which is the better thing? Should you have all the water and all your supplies in your garage? Some of it's going to go bad, but at least you have something. Or do you wait till the hurricane is about to arrive and go to the supermarket and get in a fight with everyone for the same supplies?
Right.
We banked on the later as a government.
Right.
That's what happened in COVID. And obviously they learned it and they turned it around and now we have it all. But I was watching this in real time, literally editing the book and changing and making references because I'm like, this is all what I'm writing about for the past 3 years.
Did it kill you that you sat on that for 5 years before it comes out?
Physically, I was literally like, I want to tell everyone I know who's dealing with this now, and nobody knows. And I will say, credit to the Washington Post. They did a giant piece on it. And I was like, oh, they blew it. Everyone's going to care. Nobody cared.
It's a newspaper.
Nobody cared.
Nobody saw it.
Nobody cared. I was like, it's fantastic for me. Like, it's fantastic. So, yeah, I literally have had these secret warehouses. And even the secrets that are in there, there's, I went to my buddy who's in one of these high-level acronym agencies, had a huge role in them. And I said to him, how do we communicate with each other?
Oh, that's the other thing I wrote down. Is this Black House?
Oh, this is good.
Black House real?
You're going to hear the full story now. So here's where it comes from. So I go to my buddy, and I'm like, how do you communicate with each other when everything we put out we know can be read on the internet? And he said to me, listen, the moment you hit send on your email, the moment you hit that send button, anything can be read. I don't care if you write it on Signal. I don't care if you write it on WhatsApp. Anyone with a good de-encryption program.
WhatsApp tells me that nobody can read it.
Yeah, no.
I do all my stuff on WhatsApp.
Yeah, no. WhatsApp's owned by Facebook. They never lie to you. Just give them all the pictures of your children and everything else. So I'm like, well, what do you do? And he said, here's what you do. Get a Hotmail account. He said, write me an email, but don't hit send. Hit save drafts.
Right.
And now give me the login to the account. I'll go into your account. I'll read what you wrote. I'll write you something back. I'll hit save drafts.
Right.
Now you and I are talking to each other. We've never put a single thing in the cyberspace. It's a great idea. Until General Petraeus, the former head of the CIA, uses that trick that's in the lightning rod in our book.
Right.
And he uses it to cheat on his wife with his mistress. And I'm like, I call my buddy. I'm like, he just used the idea you gave me. He's like, I know, that's our idea. Which kind of tells you what agency I'm talking to, right? And I'm like, I need a new one. So he's the one who comes up with Black House. And Black House, I can't say whether it's real or whether it's not, but the technology behind it is, I did not make that up. I couldn't make that up. And the trick that he gives me,
right.
We don't want to ruin it. It's in the lightning rod. But
oh, it's so good,
it's
though.
so good. And it's
got to be real.
I did not make it up.
It's got to be real.
It's so good.
There's parts of it that where I could go like, okay, maybe not.
But the idea of Black House,
real.
And just so you hear this, so we all know the White House. And the idea of Black House is when Richard Nixon started taping people, everyone who works in the White House is like, oh, crap. I don't want to be on tape. I don't want to be in the history books on some, So where do you speak in the White House when you want to say something secretly? And that's where that acronym, that name comes from. Is there's a White House and there's a Black House, and the
Right.
Black House is where you can speak secretly in the White House, and it changes, right? Because George Stephanopoulos supposedly went to used to go in like one of the nearby gyms to go talk. Everyone has a different spot.
Right.
Dick Cheney, I think, slept in his, man-sized safe, whatever it might have been. But like everyone's got it truly a different, all kidding aside, has a spot, and you'll see where the new spot is.
Oh, it's so good though.
It's
It
a
is
good
so
one.
good.
I'm proud of that one.
Why is nobody monitoring the email address that's in the book?
I don't know. I know. I think I got the email address. Did I get it? I hope I got it. Every time I put an email in the book, I always grab the email or the URL. I'm now thinking
Nobody's
in middle-aged,
responded to it.
it should be
Like
coming
a
to me.
putz, I sat there and emailed the thing.
I'm gonna check today.
I even said hi, Brad, in there.
Oh, it usually comes to me. Please, I did one. I did one years ago where I put a fake website in the address, and it had a really kind of like ridiculously fun porno-y name.
Right.
And of course, I bought the URL. And if you emailed me, it literally came back and just said, "Did you really think I wouldn't buy this?" and I just didn't do it for this one, but that's literally what it came back and said, because I was just like, "Come on!" And it was so good. Anyone who wrote, I loved them.
Okay, now I have to ask you a nerd question. Zig in the book is heavily into bees.
He's super into bees.
Are you into bees now?
I'm not into bees.
Oh, damn
but
it.
I am into learning
that
about them.
scream Brad.
It does
scream
scream.
Brad.
It does scream crazy obsessive, right? I mean, if it's like something that the general population doesn't like, but a small group of people can really get excited over, it's like comic books, right? It's like there's like even comic book people will look down at the bee people, right? Like, and those two both look down at like the Star Trek convention, and I love the hierarchy of nerd because I'm a part of all of them.
Yes, you are. Are people high-fiving you over the great Dolly Parton joke in the book?
I love that Dolly Parton. This is some good.
Great joke.
And by the way, thank
Great
you.
joke.
Thank you. And by the way, our next kids book, right, is we're doing I Am Dolly Parton. So as I'm writing, I'm like, I know a secret, and we couldn't tell anyone. And I love the Dolly Parton joke in the book.
Oh, it's so good. All right, so now let me ask you this: the other thing that's getting pushed. Did you think? Well, I shouldn't say getting pushed, but has come up. Did you think you would be where you are? Just novels. Forget the other stuff. We'll get to the other stuff in a second. That you would be where you are with the lightning rod when you started 25 years ago?
No, I couldn't possibly. And no, my parents didn't go to a 4-year college. I mean, I couldn't. I was here in D.C., and I just wanted someone to read it. And I mean someone, I mean my buddies.
Right.
Like, I never was like, oh, we're going to try for the best. When they told me we were on the bestseller list, I didn't know what the bestseller list was. Because my parents had no books in our house. I didn't know it existed. They were like, I shouldn't say, like a day or two before, they're like, we're looking for the bestseller list spot. And I'm like, oh, yeah, me too. What's the bestseller list? Like, I had no idea that was a thing because that's not my universe. And it's funny, my years ago, my brother-in-law used to always say to me, where do you want to be in 10 years? And I was like, I don't know. That's a stupid question. I'm like, writing these books. That's what I want to do. And it took me a while to figure out that I don't ever want to know. Why would I want to know the ending of my own story?
Right.
Like, there's no surer way to ruin the ending than ruin the story than to know the ending. So I never, ever thought, that I'd be able to. I was just hoping to pay off my loans from college. Like, that was, if I did that, that was amazing. I remember sitting in D.C. here and getting my check for those first books and writing to the loan officer for my law school loans, my college loans, and I literally wrote, "Dear sir or madam, thank you for your money. I love you, Brad Meltzer." And that was, to me, all I needed. I was done. And I could have never, ever anticipated we'd been able to have the fun we've been able to have for 25 years.
So if you were researching those secret warehouses 5 years ago, are you sitting on stuff now that you know that you're going to use?
Oh, of course. I'm already working on the next book.
But it won't be 4 years.
No, it shouldn't be. I hope not.
Is it going to be Zig and
It's
Nola?
Zig and Nola. Yeah, Zig and Nola are back. Obviously, you see the end of this book. They're back. And I love working with them. But yeah, I mean, COVID definitely took 6 months out of it. That added to the 4 years. They wanted to publish this last year, and I was like, don't put it out. I've worked really hard on this book. I'm so proud of it. Don't put it out in the heart of COVID where we can't tour, we can't go out, no one's going to see it. The world was on fire. I was like, just wait. So that was an extra year.
Right.
I lost 6 months just because it was 6 months and it was hard to focus, and the world was on fire. But obviously, I always know ahead what I'm doing, and there are people now who I'm talking to on a regular basis about whatever the next thing is.
Right, but is there a big secret warehouse secret that you're sitting on?
There's one really cool thing. Of course, I got it. I mean,
What
what
is
do
it?
I do?
What is it?
I'm not. I'll tell you.
Give us a
after.
hint.
It's a good one though. It is a fun one. It's the warehouse one is crazy. The thing that obviously people love about the warehouse is it's so big,
Right.
but it's right in front of your face.
I know. Well, that's
It's
the other
right
thing.
in front of your face. Like if I know where they are, I know where a good amount of them are, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's right in front of your
Have
face.
I passed one?
You've passed. I'm telling you, it's like basically it's your house. It's kind of like it's your house. I mean, but truly, like you're like, oh my gosh, and like sometimes they're warehouses, but sometimes they're not warehouses. So just look for big buildings, and it's so smart. And again, where do they have to be? They got to be near airports.
Right, to be
Why?
able to get
Because
them
you
out.
got to be able to get stuff out quickly. If you're going to cover the entire country with a dozen places, they got to be near airports. So I love the fact that, my favorite thing is when you have something that is top secret and it's right in front of your face and the government's totally fooling us.
Right.
I'm like, oh, it's so good.
Okay, so you mentioned the kids' books. Where are we in that? Where are we in that world?
Okay, so beside getting banned by Pennsylvania,
Yeah, dude, how does that happen?
so here's a story. This is a crazy story. So on Twitter, on Instagram, I forget who told me first. They're like, your books on Rosa Parks and I Am Martin Luther King Jr. got banned. And you know why we do these books, right? I mean, I'm tired of my kids being fed garbage on Instagram. We did I Am Amelia Earhart, I Am Amelia Earhart, Abraham Lincoln, Rosa Parks, Albert Einstein, Jackie Robinson, right?
Right.
Jim Henson, like my kid who loves Lego and creativity. I did Walt Disney, and Jim Henson for him. So we've done, 25 of these books. They tell me I Am Rosa Parks and I Am Martin Luther King Jr. got banned. And not just, had nothing to do with the content. There were 200 books that were considered good for talking to your kids about race. It was our books, Malala's book, Hidden Figures, the adaptation of those amazing women who worked at NASA and helped with all the mathematics of it. And even Sesame Street's book on race. It was all on the list. And what the school board did in Pennsylvania is they said, here's what we're going to do. We want to read these books before we hand them to kids, which is a good idea. That's fine, good. But the fast one that they pulled is they waited for an entire year to read the books, and they still didn't read them. The books take 5 minutes to read.
I was going to say, I
It's
speed read
5
through
minutes,
those.
right? So
Yeah, it's a
they're
little more than about an hour.
Yeah, and I know, it's big words. And so, and basically when we heard about what started as a freeze became a ban.
Right.
And so I got a call from Fox News, from MSNBC, from CNN, all of them just totally saying this is wrong. When Fox News and CNN and MSNBC agree, you pushed it too far, right?
Right.
Like, it's too far. So, I obviously try and shame them. I go to the school board meeting. I speak at the school board. I read my favorite line from I Am Rosa Parks. It says, I'm not a famous politician. I'm not a wealthy business person, but I'm an ordinary person. I'm just an ordinary person, and I'm proof that there's no such thing as an ordinary person. I read it. I feel like I've saved the day. And then all of the students from the school district start speaking, and they're incredible. And they are just taking these school board members, and they're like, shame on you. They're like, that you won't want kids to have books that look like me. And they're just inspired. I'm like, I did not need to be here. These kids are incredible.
Right.
And we get the ban overturned right there. But I look through history to see, what else have we banned over time? Where did it start? And in America, historians tend to agree that the first book that was banned as a country is Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. And why did it get banned? Because slave owners didn't want anyone talking about the idea that slavery was bad.
Right.
They didn't want any abolitionist ideas to indoctrinate their kids and the community. Like, look at those words. It's the same thing happening today, right? They're worried that their hold on power is going to be lost and their way
Right.
of life will change. And everyone who wants to ban books, it's a power play. They're worried their life and their power is going to go away. So if you're cheering while books are being pulled off the library shelves, you're on the wrong side of history.
Right.
And I love the fact that we've been fighting back with our books. Our newest, I Am Malala Yousafzai and I Am Muhammad Ali. I had all these Muslim kids saying, where's our book?
Right.
You've done, white people, black people, Indians, Native Americans, where's ours? Muhammad Ali is all about fighting for what you believe. On the back of every book, it says the value that we want your kids to have. And it says, I am Muhammad Ali, and I will always fight for what I believe. I want my daughter to have that message. I want my sons to have that message. And I love the fact we get to put these books out there and people fight back and use them to build libraries for their kids, their grandkids, their nieces, their nephews. So to answer your question, we have Muhammad Ali and Malala are out right now. Are the brand new ones, came out like 2 weeks ago. We have I Am Pei, the great architect.
Right.
As a
He
pop-up
did the
book.
Louvre thing, right?
Right, he did
oh,
the
that's
Louvre.
right. You were doing the
Right,
pop-up.
We have a pop-up book, which was genius of us, and it also delayed the book a year because of friggin' COVID. They're like, great idea, Brad. You made a pop-up, and now we can't make it for a year. And we're also doing I Am Dolly Parton, which is awesome, coming in June. We're then doing a team-up with DC Comics, I Am Superman and I Am Batman, and I Am Wonder Woman, which is...
Right, this is right up your alley.
Right,
wait, what's
course.
that line? And then an erection expanded in
right,
his
in pants, right, exactly. and then if you come tonight, so I did make one reward. If you come tonight, I will tell you what the next ones are. I said online, because everyone keeps asking what the next ones. If you come to the signings, I will tell you what the next ones are. I promise. And they're so good. Last night when I announced
beyond
it,
like
beyond what's announced, beyond Superman,
really?
beyond Batman. Yeah, we have. I'm literally at the events. I reward those who come. If you don't come, you are dead to us. And so no, and but we literally, and what the next conspiracy book is too. We announced last night. And,
that was the other thing I was, because I love those, the George Washington and the Abraham Lincoln one.
Yeah.
And I told you that's how they should do textbooks for people in school.
Trust me.
It's so much easier to read than a history book. I mean, it's all real. It's all factual.
All right. I mean, it's a secret plot to kill George Washington, and is the first conspiracy. The Lincoln conspiracy is a secret plot.
But it reads like a thriller.
And I wrote it like a thriller. And Josh mentioned I worked on it. You know, Chris Eliopoulos I work with for our kids' books. Josh mentioned I work with for our adult ones. And there's 50 pages of footnotes in there. But I have all these teachers who are like, this is the only history my kids want to read. And I want to read as an adult. They're obviously for adults.
Wait, so you're doing another one of those?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so now I have to go tonight. All right.
I'll
that's
text
fine.
you. Don't worry. I'll show you. In fact, when we go to break, I'm going to show you the covers. But it's so much fun. We love doing these books. And obviously the kids' books for us have been, it's my soul in book form, and watching people use them to fight back and especially when they were banned. I mean, we got 5,000 books donated to this York County, Pennsylvania that banned us. We got enough. They banned us, and we got enough books for every kid in the school district.
That's amazing.
That is like the middle finger, not me, but like from the librarians there. They gave like the giant middle finger to their school board with our books. And I just love that they took the lessons of Rosa Parks and Dr. King in our books, which is you fight back.
Right.
I love that.
All right, so let's go back to the lightning rod. Are
Yes.
are you pleased with how it's being received?
They just sent me the newest review. It's stupidly good. And James Patterson said, this is my favorite Brad Meltzer book ever.
You know what? Because he's on the
on the cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the guy who made
I didn't even know that you guys were tight.
And so, I know him because I did his event with Bill Clinton. They had me be the moderator for it.
Oh, that's right.
But all thrillerized. And then the guy who made Reacher, Lee Child, said that Nola is one of recent fiction's all-time great characters. It was the only thing that impressed my wife.
Really?
Because she likes Reacher. She likes the hunky guy, and she's like, but the guy that he said you can't take your eyes off Nola. She's one of the great new characters in modern fiction. I'm like, even I was like, whoa, you may want to walk that back a little. I was truly, because I think he's truly a great writer.
Right.
Like I respect how he writes, and he just has biting sentences. And when the guy who says Reacher says, the lightning rod is that, and even, forget about the people that, I obviously know Patterson, but, I had AJ Finn, who I don't know, saying this is the best kicker of ass since the girl with the dragon tattoo. And then in the newspaper, we just got this article. It literally just came to me. And it was this, I haven't seen a review like that in so long.
Right.
That obviously, and I don't think any good review means you're great. In the same way, I don't think any bad review means it's terrible. I remember coming and getting a review once for the first Council, which I think is one of my best written books. It's How You and I Met. It's the one in the White House. And literally USA Today put this giant headline. I was like, I've written the best book I've ever written. And the headline said, make first, because it was first Council, make first your last. And I literally read it, and I called my mother. It was just like, it was a brutal beating of me. And I called my mother, and I was like, oh, look at this. And my mom's like, don't worry, sweetie, no one reads that paper. I'm like, Mom, it's USA Today. It's the #1 paper in America, read in every friggin' hotel room. So I've had, it both ways. It's okay.
But so that's nice, like newspapers and reviewers and stuff. But it's the first one in 4 years.
Yeah.
Fans have to love it.
That's the thing is, I mean, I go online.
Not even just fans. New
readers. No, I said the first review I got was a guy who never read any of the books. He heard me on one of the TV shows. He read it in like 24 hours. Like, I never read any of your books. I read this one. I friggin' loved it. I'm going to go read the rest. And that's, again, one of those things you asked about, like, can you be I don't think of that. I still think it's like my buddies just like when my parents died,
Right.
I cleaned out their closet. And in their closet were hundreds of books. Like my parents, I thought we made the bestseller list because my parents just were buying all the books. I'm like, oh, they've been buying them all. Like that's it. Like I still, when a stranger says I bought it and they come in line like tonight and I'm signing their books, I'm always like, I still have that feeling of like, how do I know you? Because why else would you be here? And I never want to lose that. That to
Right.
me is the best part.
You said TV shows. You know who seems like she loves you?
Who's that?
Kelly Clarkson.
Oh my! So did you see my appearance on Kelly Clarkson? I was on Kelly Clarkson. They had me come out, and I thought I'm going to be on for like
You were
the
on Kelly
segment.
Clarkson for like the whole show.
For the whole, and I didn't know that I was going to be on for the whole show. So I go out and I'm like, I'm going to get my 5 minutes and I'm going to do my thing. And I do my thing. And then I go to get up and she's like, no, stay. And I'm like, oh, is this like the Johnny Carson? Like, they tap you for the comedy? I was like, I didn't know. And then they don't tell me anything. And by the way, it's all COVID back then. So, because we taped that like 5 months ago.
Did you really?
I really did. I look 5 months younger. And they just took a while to release it. And it was just happened to be dumb luck that it was Literacy Day right when Lightning Rod came out. So now there's no one in the studio. Everything's an iPad's taped to the walls. And they're like, Brad, and you turn around and you're talking to an iPad. There's nobody there. They're so worried about getting COVID and shutting down. So she says, stay. So now I do the next segment with her. And then I'm like going, she said, no, stay for the next one. I'm on for every segment. I'm on for, my wife is like, you're on for 45 minutes because she doesn't want to watch me. And she's watching and she's like, I'm watching. And we had so much fun and she's so awesome. And I know, you always want to know, like, what do you whisper in those things after, what?
Yeah, right.
And we're actually laughing and having fun. I'm like, she's cool, man. Like, I loved her. So, yes, I'm...
Did you tell Seth Meyers? Kelly let me stay on the entire show.
Oh, yeah, that worked well for me. Or as my son and my daughter were at the dinner table and they said I was going to be on Seth Meyers. This is true. And I was on, it was Leslie Jones and Topher Grace and me. And my daughter says, are you going to be like the first guest? And my son's like, no, he's going to be the last. Which I was. Close that show down. It was spectacular.
All right, the Lightning Rod is out and available now. You can go see Brad tonight, Tyson's Corner, the Barnes & Noble at Tyson's Corner at 7 o'clock. The Lightning Rod's great. The Lightning Rod is awesome.